Hey everyone, thanks for joining me again, and today we're looking at another xDuoo product. Today we're looking at the XD05 Pro. It is their high-power, portable, modular DAC and headphone amp. Out the door, I'll tell you, this product personally is not for me. It just doesn't fit my lifestyle. However, if you do a lot of traveling with some power-hungry headphones, this might be a good option. Let's take a look at what you get first. As for the accessory kit, it is pretty nice. The unit comes in this compartment here and you have a set of extra op amps, but underneath you have a bunch of accessories. And over here we have a couple different USB cables. You have USB-C to Lightning, USB-C to USB-C. This is an extension cable and these are really nice. They're like the ones from Chubby Cable, so really nice and flexible and thick. You have a stereo male-to-male, you have a balanced male-to-male. You have the small Torx driver, which is a T6, and this guy helps you change the DACs out as well as the op amps, 3.5 to 6.35. This one's an odd decision right here. This is a mini XLR to mini XLR, female on both sides. And I'll explain to you why it's odd in a second. And a USB-C to USB-A adapter. On the front side, we have our single-ended 6.35 and our balanced 4.4 millimeter. On the left side, we have our buttons, Bluetooth pairing, our turbo button, which changes the pseudo gains, our menu that helps us go through some display and DAC filter settings, and our input. Finally, a long press turns the unit on and off. On the back of the XD05 Pro, you'll see all the inputs and outputs. In the first one, you have optical and coax input. I would have loved to have seen a standard optical. I know the limitation is space here, but they also could have included an adapter for this right here, and I'll post one up here from Amazon. Next, this is that strange decision that I was talking about earlier. This is an AES input, and it's on mini XLR. Now, usually when you have inputs, those are in the form of female connectors, but this is a male, so normally that tells you that signal is coming out. So what they did to combat that is they gave you a female to female. So you input the female, and now you have a female here. I don't know why they didn't just choose to put a female in the first place there. Next you have your USB in on C, and that is for data. Your auxiliary in and out on 3.5 millimeter and balanced in and out on 4.4. You have your charge USB, so this is isolated from the data, which is wonderful. Then you have this toggle all the way to the right, which says battery, external, and charge. When you have it on battery, you're using the internal battery. On external, you're using the external power supply, and when you're charging, you want to move it up to the charge toggle. A long press will wake the unit up. We have no signal as I don't have any data coming in. The LEDs on the side are blue. If I hit the turbo button once, it'll go to red on the LED color. One more time, it's on green, and that'll put us in eco mode. You can also see that on the little OLED screen right here. It says eco, goes to normal, goes to turbo. I was listening mostly in normal, and that only affects the gain on the headphone amp stage. You cannot control the volume of the output, only the headphone amp. I tested this unit primarily as a DAC, and I used the AES input. I used that male to female adapter, and then a mini XLR to standard XLR cable. The AES EBU signal coming from a Cambridge Audio 851N streamer. One of the key selling features for this unit is its modularity, and you can adjust that in two areas. On the underside of the unit, closest to the front screen, you have a compartment where you can switch out op amps. On the rear side, you have a compartment where you can switch out DAC modules. And they come in the form of these aluminum little boxes, and also come in at different price points. The most affordable model comes in at $799, and that comes with a single ESS 9039S chip. You can also get a module with the ROON 34301 at $949, or a model with the AKM 4499EX coming in at just under $1,000. The ESS chip has 7 PCM filters, and I preferred using filter number 2, as that's the one that gives the sound closest to my current DAC, the DAC Q8, which uses dual ESS 9038 Pro chips. The ROON DAC has 2 PCM filters, filter 1 having a sharp roll-off and filter 2 having a slow roll-off. I preferred filter number 1, which as you can see in the graph extends well into 20 kHz, whereas filter 2 gives you a 3.5 dB roll-off at 20K, but starts probably at around 16K. I like the little extra higher treble detail on filter 1. And the AKM DAC module has the standard 7 filters So on to the sound comparisons. I first started comparing the ESS DAC with my current DAC U8. And that one has dual ESS chips compared to the single one in the xDuoo. This one, the 9039S Pros, the DAC, the 9038 Pros. And I honestly couldn't tell the difference. The sound characteristics are the same. The bass quality, the highs, the mids, the spacing, the width, everything was exactly the same, which made it super easy when comparing that DAC to the other two DACs in this unit and being able to switch back and forth, as opposed to having to take out the DAC modules every time and trying to remember what I heard. Since I'm very familiar with the sound of the DAC U8 DAC and I love the sound of that DAC, I can tell you I love the sound of the ESS DAC in this unit as well. When I switched over to the ROON DAC, I found that it was just a little too smooth for me. The imaging isn't quite as sharp as with the ESS DAC, although the layering and the soundstage width is about the same. You just tend to lose a little focus, you get a little softer sound, and you definitely lose a little bit of the highs. Even with filter 1, which gives you a little more high-end detail, filter 2 kills the top end even more. I personally found the ROON DAC to be a downgrade in my opinion. I think it would work if you're trying to tame a super bright tweeter or very bright headphones, but if you have a headphone that's fairly flat, it's going to kill some of that top end. Then we move on to the AKM DAC, and this is where I hear some improvement. With the AKM DAC, we still get a little more detail over the ESS DAC. You can hear the edges of the vocals a little bit better, the layering is a little bit deeper, and your soundstage is a little bit wider. So all around, more detail with the AKM chip. The bass is slightly tighter, so it gives the illusion of less bass, but it's just more controlled. If you have a track that has some long sustained notes, you'll definitely get that long note. You just won't get that extra decay that you'll get with the ESS chip. If you're a bass head, the ESS might be slightly better. If you want a more precise sound, the AKM is the way to go. For the most part, I was listening to music via ROON shot over to my streamer. And I have ROON upsampling to 176 kHz or 192. But I decided to run a little test and test this unit out with a little bit lesser quality music, so I switched over to Tidal Connect. Now this comparison is with the ESS and the AKM DAC only. At this point I've removed the ROON from my listening. I know what that DAC sounds like. It's not going to get any improvements here. I listened to a few tracks with Tidal set to max, and then I switched the sound quality to low. And there you have two options, 96 kilobits or 320. I selected 320. When I'm shooting that signal over to this DAC, the differences in the AKM DAC and the ESS DAC are completely gone. Now they both sound great, but that extra space that you get with the AKM and that extra width, that little extra detail, is no longer there. And the reason I bring this up is because Spotify is still a large player in the streaming world. If you're going to use this DAC with Spotify at 320 kilobits, you're not going to get any improvement by buying the AKM DAC. So just a little FYI, that was my experience. The differences really shine when you have a higher resolution file, something of CD quality and above. And those sound differences of extra space and extra clarity isn't something that you can EQ into your sound. On to the headphone section. I compared the headphone section on this unit with three other options. The built-in headphone amp on my DAC U8, the HiFiMan EF600, and just for fun, the FX Audio Tube 05, which is just a tube buffer headphone amp. Bring your own DAC on that one. It does use a 12 AU7, so you do get quite a bit of tubey sound to it, which is a plus and a minus. So we'll start with the U8. The DX just knocks the U8 out of the water. Now I love that headphone amp for something simple at a great price point, but this unit makes that unit sound like a convenience headphone amp, like if you're plugging into the 3.5mm to your computer or cell phone. You just simply can't compare the sound quality or power of this unit. Super clean, very powerful. Generally speaking, much more space on the xDuoo. Everything was deeper, everything is wider. All around, you just can't compare it. This unit blows that unit out of the water. Once again, DAC-wise, they sound the same, but headphone output, the xDuoo is pretty awesome. Next, the HiFiMan EF600. Now that unit has a R2R DAC, so it does give you a little more sense of space. Very smooth, and the highs are slightly rolled off, not as much as the ROON DAC. You do get a little more precision in the imaging than the ROON DAC, not quite as much as the AKM chip on the xDuoo. The HiFiMan also outpowers the xDuoo by more than double. That one's coming in around 5 watts compared to the 2 watts on this unit. But we have to remember again that this is a portable unit. One of the selling points of this unit is that you're able to take it elsewhere, whereas the HiFiMan is staying at home. And honestly, it is quite a big unit. I think they could have made that one a little bit smaller. But sound-wise, I think that one's a matter of taste. Depends on what direction you want to go in. The HiFiMan definitely does have more power though, so if you do have very difficult to drive headphones, that might be a better option. But honestly, I think 2 watts would be plenty. But it's really tough to say what loud is to you. I personally felt that the 150 milliwatts on my DAC U8 was plenty of power for myself, and a viewer told me that they had tried it and didn't think it was loud enough. The HiFiMan is priced at $799, but that one's on sale currently for $650. So if you're interested in that unit, right now is a good time to make a purchase. And finally, I also compared it to this little FX Audio tube preamp. Now this one doesn't have a DAC built in, so I shot over the signal from my U8 DAC into this unit and amplified that. Now I get a nice amount of volume on this unit, still not at the level of the xDuoo. The mids are beautiful out of this unit. The highs are great, but the bass does suffer, and I think it's because of the stock tube. It's definitely all over the place, kind of very bloated and inconsistent, whereas the bass on the xDuoo here is precise, hard-hitting, very enveloping. So all around, fun experiment, but if you're looking for quality, this is the way to go. But I wouldn't completely toss this guy out. I think it has its place, and we'll talk about it later in the week. So yeah, that's about all I have about this one. The key takeaways is that this is a mobile unit, so it doesn't do the best of anything at a certain price point. If I were to want a headphone amp and DAC that can stay at home, that would beat this, I would definitely go with a topping A70 and D70 stack. I think that headphone amp and either the Octo or the Sabre versions of the D70 would give you a much better sound quality than the DAC in this unit. The flip side is you're not taking those guys anywhere. The xDuoo has the possibility of being taken mobile. Whether it's worth it to you at this price, that's an unknown. For me, again, that's not in my lifestyle. I wouldn't go that route, but it may just be out of my price bracket. If you can afford this guy, go for it. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. I just wouldn't use it primarily as a DAC for home use. And I'd like to thank Apos Audio. They sent me this unit as a loaner for review. I'll ship it back to them, and I always appreciate them. So I'll go ahead and put an Apos link if you're interested in purchasing this unit or the A70 D70 stack. You can click on through there to go to the website. All right, guys, we'll see you on the next one.